touch me, you filthy old thing!
She slapped an old woman in the marketplace, and from that moment on, she began to age alone. The marketplace drums were beating that morning when Amara stepped into the square and every head turned. She moved like water through fire, untouched, untouchable. Her wrapper was the color of ripe mangoes, her skin gleamed like shea butter under moonlight, and her neck carried coral beads that whispered wealth with every step. Men stumbled over their words when she passed. Women sucked their teeth and looked away, nothing envy like a secret wound. Amara knew, and she fed on it. "Make way," she said, her voice sharp as a new blade, though no one was blocking her path. The crowd parted anyway. Mothers pulled their children aside. Traders lowered their eyes. She was 23 years old and believed the world had been poured into her hands by the gods themselves. Her mother had warned her once, years ago, before the sickness took her. "Amara, my daughter, beauty is like palm wine in a cracked calabash. It will not last. Pour kindness into people's hearts before your own cup runs dry." But Amara laughed. She was young. The mirror loved her. Why should she bow to anyone? That morning, she was on her way to Chief Okonko's compound. He had requested her presence, something about marriage talks, though she had not yet decided if he was worthy. The thought made her smile. Even chiefs had to wait for her. She walked past the yam sellers, past the blacksmith's fire, past the old women selling kola nuts under the baobab tree. The air smelt of roasted plantains and red dust. Children chased each other between the stalls, laughing in that careless way only children can. And then she saw her. An old woman, bent like a question mark, shuffling through the crowd. Her wrapper was torn and faded, the color of old ash. Her feet were bare and cracked, and she leaned heavily on a twisted walking stick. She moved slowly, too slowly, muttering something under her breath. Amara's lip curled. Beggars. They were everywhere these days, cluttering the marketplace like flies on spoilt meat. The old woman turned, and their eyes met for a brief, flickering moment. The woman's gaze was strange, calm, bottomless, like looking into a well with no end. Something cold brushed against Amara's spine. Then the old woman moved toward her. "Please," the woman croaked, reaching out with a trembling hand. "I have not eaten in 2 days. Anything you can spare, my daughter. Anything." Her bony fingers grazed Amara's sleeve. Amara jabbed back as if burned. "Don't touch me," she hissed. Her voice cut through the market noise like a whip crack. Conversation stopped. Heads turned. The old woman stumbled slightly, her hand still outstretched. "Forgive me, child. I only—" "What only?" Amara asked. Her eyes flashed with fury. "You dare put your dirty hands on me? Do you know who I am?" Her heart pounded, not from fear, but from rage. Rage that this thing, this worthless, forgotten creature, had dared to soil her presence. The old woman stood still now, her face unreadable. Around them, the marketplace had gone silent. Even the children had stopped running. "I said, forgive me," the old woman repeated softly. But Amara was too far gone. Her pride was a fire, and shame was the wind that fed it. In front of all these people, this beggar had embarrassed her, touched her, made her flinch like a common girl. She raised her hand, and she slapped the old woman across the face. The sound echoed, a sharp, ugly crack that seemed to hang in the air long after it should have faded. The old woman's head snapped to the side. Her walking stick clattered to the ground. No one moved. No one breathed. Slowly, the old woman straightened. She turned her face back toward Amara, and there was no anger there, no tears, no shock. She was smiling. It was a small smile, sad and knowing, like someone watching a child run toward the edge of a cliff. "You have chosen," the old woman said quietly, her voice steady, despite the red mark blooming on her cheek. "You will carry it now. Not in shame before others, but in the mirror, in the silence, in your own skin." Amara's mouth dried. Something in the woman's tone twisted her stomach, but pride would not let her show it. "Get out of my sight," she spat. The old woman bent slowly, picked up her stick, and turned away. As she limped into the crowd, she spoke once more, so softly that only Amara heard. "You will remember me every day, and no one else will understand why." Then she was gone. The marketplace resumed slowly, whispers first, then murmurs, then the full noise of life again. But people looked at Amara differently now, not with fear, not with envy, with something colder. Amara lifted her chin and walked on, her heart hammering in her chest. She told herself it meant nothing. The old woman was mad, a beggar, a nobody. But deep inside, beneath the pride and the beauty and the coral beads, a small voice whispered, "What have you done?" That night, Amara could not sleep. She lay on her woven mat, staring at the thatched ceiling of her hut, listening to the night sounds, crickets singing, a distant dog barking, the wind moving through the palm trees like a restless spirit. Her body was tired, but her mind would not quiet. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the old woman's face, that smile, that terrible, knowing smile. "You will carry it," the woman had said. Carry what? The memory? The shame? Amara turned onto her side and pulled her wrapper tighter around her shoulders. It was nothing, just the ramblings of a mad beggar. By morning, no one would even remember. But she remembered. She remembered the sound of the slap, the way the crowd had gone silent, the way people had looked at her afterward, not with admiration, but with something that tasted like pity. Pity? For her? Amara sat up suddenly, her chest tight. No, she would not let this steal her peace. Tomorrow, she would go to Chief Okonko's compound as planned. She would smile, she would charm, and this foolish incident would fade like morning mist. She lay back down and forced her eyes shut. Sleep came eventually, but it was thin and restless, full of shadows that moved just beyond her vision. She woke to sunlight streaming through the cracks in her door, and for a moment, everything felt normal. Birds were singing. Somewhere outside, a woman was pounding yam. The air smelled of wood smoke and dew. Amara stretched, yawned, and reached for the small clay pot of water beside her mat. She splashed her face, enjoying the coolness against her skin, and reached for the bronze mirror her father had given her years ago. She loved this mirror. It had been her companion every morning since she was 16, her daily confirmation that the world was right, that she was the most beautiful woman in the village. She lifted it to her face and froze. Her hands were wrong. The skin on the back of her right hand, where it had struck the old woman, was no longer smooth. It was rough, dry. The knuckles were slightly swollen, and thin lines like cracks in dry earth ran across the surface. Amara's breath caught in her throat. She turned her hand over, examining it in the light. It looked older. Not by much, but enough. Her heart began to pound. She dropped the mirror and scrambled to the corner of her hut where she kept a larger piece of polished metal. She held it up with shaking hands. Her face was the same. Still beautiful, still smooth, but her right hand. No, this was a trick of the light. Or maybe she slept on it wrong. Or... She rubbed the hand furiously, as if she could scrub the strangeness away. The skin felt rough under her fingers, like old bark. A knock sounded at her door. Amara, it was her neighbor, Ngozi, a cheerful woman who sold palm oil in the market. Are you coming to the well? The water is sweet this morning. Amara's voice came out higher than she intended. I'll come later. Are you well? Yes, just tired. There was a pause, then Ngozi's footsteps faded away. Amara sank to the floor, staring at her hand. Her mind raced. This was impossible. Hands didn't age overnight. Skin didn't change like this. Unless you will carry it, the old woman's voice echoed in her memory, soft and certain. No, Amara shook her head violently. She was being foolish. This was nothing. A rash, a skin irritation. It would pass. She wrapped her hand in a strip of cloth and went about her day,
forcing herself to act normal. But it didn't pass. By the third day, the aging had spread to her wrists. By the fifth day, faint lines had appeared at the corners of her eyes, lines that had not been there before. And no one noticed. Not Ngozi, not the traders in the market, not even Chief Okonkwo, who had finally sent for her and spent the entire visit staring at her face with hungry eyes, seeing only beauty. You are a vision, a gift from the gods. Amara smiled and nodded, but inside she wanted to scream. Look closer, she wanted to shout. Look at my hands, look at my eyes, can't you see? But they didn't. They saw only what they had always seen. Because, if that was what it was hers alone. If you're feeling the weight of Amara's secret like she is, don't let this story slip away. Subscribe now so you never miss what happens next. At night, she locked herself in her hut and unwrapped the cloth from her hand. The skin was now unmistakably aged, wrinkled, spotted, the veins visible beneath the surface like roots under dry soil. She touched her hair and found 3 strands of grey. Amara bit down on her knuckles to keep from sobbing. What was happening to her? Why couldn't anyone else see it? She thought of the old woman, the smile, the words. And for the first time since the slap, Amara felt something she had never truly felt before. Fear. 2 weeks passed, and Amara became a ghost in her own skin. Every morning, she woke hoping it had been a dream. Every morning, the mirror told her otherwise. Her right hand was now fully aged, the hand of a woman in her 60s, gnarled and weak. Her left hand had begun to follow. The grey in her hair spread like spilled ash, and though she plucked the strands out frantically, more appeared each day. Her back ached in the mornings. Her knees creaked when she walked. And still, no one saw. She went to the market. She visited Chief Okonkwo. She spoke with neighbors. They all looked at her the same way, with admiration, with desire, with envy. It was maddening. One evening, she stood before her large metal mirror, naked and trembling. Her face was still young, but her neck had begun to loosen. Her shoulders were thinner. Her stomach, once taut and proud, now sagged slightly, as if her body was slowly collapsing inward. She looked like 2 people stitched together, youth and age, beauty and decay. Why? She whispered to her reflection. Why me? But the mirror had no answers. She began asking questions, carefully, quietly. Ngozi, she said one day at the well, her voice light. Do you remember that old beggar woman? The one in the market 2 weeks ago? Ngozi frowned, adjusting the clay pot on her head. Which one? There are so many. The one Amara stopped herself. The one who was near the yam sellers. She had a walking stick. She looked strange. Ngozi shrugged. I don't remember. Why? No reason. But Amara's heart sank. She asked others, the blacksmith, the palm wine tapper, the woman who sold kola nuts. No one remembered the old woman. Or if they did, they remembered her only as a shadow, a vague shape in the crowd, nothing more. It was as if she had never existed, or as if she had been meant only for Amara. Desperation crept in like flood water. Amara visited the village herbalist, a wiry old man named Udoka, who lived on the edge of the forest. His hut smelled of dried roots and smoke, and bones hung from the ceiling on thin strings, clacking softly in the breeze. I need help, Amara said, her voice tight. Udoka studied her with cloudy eyes. You look well to me. I'm not, she said. She unwrapped her hand. He leaned closer, squinting. Then he sat back, shaking his head. Your hand is fine. It's not, Amara's voice cracked. Look at it. The skin, the veins. Can't you see? Udoka's expression softened, but not with understanding. With pity. Child, there is nothing wrong with your hand, but if your mind is troubled, I can give you something to help you sleep. Amara stumbled out of his hut, her chest heaving. He hadn't seen it. He couldn't see it. No one could. That night, she made a decision. She would find the old woman. She would beg for forgiveness. She would do whatever it took to undo this. Because if this continued, if she kept aging while the world stayed blind, she would become something worse than ugly. She would become invisible. The search began at dawn. Amara wrapped herself in a plain brown wrapper and covered her hair with a headscarf. She did not want to be recognized, did not want questions. She went back to the market first, walking slowly through the rows of traders and buyers, scanning every face. The old woman was not there. She asked the yam sellers, "Do you remember an old beggar? She was here weeks ago. She had a walking stick." They shook their heads. She asked the blacksmith, the basket weaver, the children playing near the well. No one had seen her. Or, if they did, they remembered her only as a shadow, a vague shape in the crowd, nothing more. It was as if she had never existed, or as if she had been meant only for Amara. Days blurred together. She walked to the neighboring villages, asking the same questions, receiving the same blank stares. She wandered the forest paths, calling out into the trees, her voice swallowed by the thick, indifferent green. Her body weakened. Her joints ached. At night, she could barely lift her arms to braid her hair. And still, no one noticed. She was aging in a world that refused to see. On the 10th day of her search, she found herself on the outskirts of the village, near the old burial grounds where the ancestors slept beneath the red earth. It was a place people avoided at dark, too quiet, too much memory. But Amara was beyond fear now. She walked between the scattered graves, her breath shallow, her legs trembling. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the ground. And then she saw her, the old woman. She was sitting on a flat stone near the edge of the forest, her walking stick resting across her lap. She looked exactly as she had in the marketplace, bent, weathered, ancient. But her eyes were bright, and she was smiling. "I've been waiting for you, child," the old woman said softly. Amara's knees buckled. She collapsed on the ground, her voice breaking. Please, I'm sorry. I didn't know." The old woman tilted her head. "Didn't know what, child?" "That you were," Amara's words caught in her throat, "that you are more than you seemed." The old woman's smile widened, but there was no cruelty in it, only sadness. "I am exactly what I seem, a tired, hungry woman who asked for kindness, and you gave me a slap." Amara lowered her head, tears streaming down her face. "I was wrong. I was cruel. Please take it back. Whatever you did to me, please undo it." The old woman was silent for a long moment. Then she stood, leaning heavily on her stick, and walked toward Amara. She knelt down, her joints cracking, and placed a wrinkled hand on Amara's cheek. "Look at me, child," she said. Amara lifted her tear-streaked face. The old woman's eyes were deep and endless, like the night sky. "I did not curse you, child. I only revealed you." "What does that mean?" Amara whispered. "You struck me because you believed I was beneath you, because you thought beauty made you better. So now, you are aging, not in the eyes of the world, but in your own. You are being shown what you truly are." Amara's breath hitched. "And what am I?" "Alone," the old woman said simply. "Alone with your cruelty."
The old woman rose slowly, her bones creaking like old wood, and walked back to the stone where she had been sitting. She lowered herself down with a long, weary sigh, as if the weight of many years pressed upon her shoulders. Amara remained on the ground, her hands clutching the dry earth, her chest heaving with silent sobs. The world around them had grown dim. The sun had slipped behind the trees, and shadows stretched long and thin across the burial grounds like fingers reaching for the dead. "Who are you?" Amara finally whispered, her voice hoarse. The old woman tilted her head, studying her. "I have many names. Some call me the Watcher. Others call me the Mirror. I walk among people, unseen and unremarkable, and I test them." "Test them for what?" "For what is hidden beneath the skin," the old one said. "Beauty, wealth, power. These things cover the truth like cloth over a wound, but I remove the cloth. I reveal what lies beneath." Amara shivered, though the air was not cold. "And what did you see in me?" The old woman's gaze was steady, unflinching. "I saw a woman who had never known suffering, a woman who had never been overlooked, never been invisible, never been cast aside. And so, you believed invisibility was a weakness. You believed that those who suffer deserve their suffering. I didn't," Amara's voice broke. "I didn't think."
No, the old woman interrupted gently. You didn't. That is the problem. Amara covered her face with her hands, her aged, wrinkled hands. So this is my punishment? To grow old while the world stays blind? The old woman shook her head. This is not punishment. This is remembrance. She leaned forward, her voice soft but unyielding. Your body is changing, yes, but the world does not see it because the world never truly saw you. They saw your beauty, your status, the surface. But you must now see yourself as you truly are. And what am I? Amara asked again, her voice barely a whisper. The old woman smiled, that sad, knowing smile. That is for you to decide. Silence settled between them, thick and heavy. Somewhere in the distance, a night bird called out, its voice lonely and low. Amara's mind raced. She thought of all the people she had dismissed, all the beggars she had ignored, all the times she had walked past suffering without a second glance. She had believed herself untouchable, above it all. And now she was being devoured by her own reflection. What do I do? She asked, her voice small, childlike. The old woman stood once more and walked toward her. She placed her walking stick on the ground and knelt before Amara, their faces level now. I will give you a choice, but you must choose carefully, because once it is done, it cannot be undone. Amara's heart hammered in her chest. What choice? The old woman held up her two gnarled fingers. First choice, I take away the curse. Your body returns to what it was, your beauty restored, your youth returned. But, she paused, her eyes sharp, you will forget. You will forget this moment. You will forget me. You will forget the lesson, and you will go back to being the woman you were before. Amara's breath caught. To be beautiful again, to be admired, to be whole, but to forget. And the second choice? She asked, her voice trembling. The old woman lowered her hand. You keep the curse. You continue to age, but slowly, slowly enough that you will live a long life, slowly enough that you will see many things, and you will remember everything, every moment, every lesson, every slap. Amara stared at her. So I stay like this, aging, alone? Not alone, the old woman said softly. You will be seen by those who matter, the broken, the forgotten, the invisible. They will see you, and in time, you will see them. Amara's throat tightened. But no one else will? No one else will need to. The choice hung in the air between them like smoke. Amara closed her eyes. She thought of all her old life, the admiration, the power, the way people stepped aside when she walked. She thought of Chief Okonkwo's hungry gaze, of Ngozi's envy, of the way children whispered her name in awe. She could have it all back. She could forget this nightmare. She could be beautiful again. But she would also forget why it mattered. Amara opened her eyes and looked at the old woman, truly looked at her. Beneath the wrinkles and the torn wrapper and the bent back, there was something else, something patient, something eternal. If I forget, said Amara slowly, will I hurt someone else? The old woman did not answer. She didn't need to. Amara's chest tightened. She thought of the marketplace, the slap, the sound it had made, the way the old woman had smiled, even as her cheek burned red. Amara's mother's words, spoken years ago. Pour kindness into people's hearts before your own cup runs dry. Her cup had run dry. She had poured nothing, and now she was paying the price. But if she forgot, if she went back, she would do it again. Maybe not to the same woman, but to someone, to anyone who reminded her of her own fear of being forgotten. I choose to remember, Amara said, her voice steady. The old woman's expression did not change, but something flickered in her eyes, something that might have been approval or relief. Then it is done, she said. The old woman stood and raised her walking stick. She tapped it once against the ground, and a strange sound filled the air, a low hum like distant thunder or the vibration of a drum deep in the earth. Amara felt a shift inside her, subtle but undeniable. The aging did not stop, but it slowed. Her ache in her bones eased slightly. Her breath came easier. But the wrinkles remained, the grey hair remained, the truth remained. You will grow old, but you will grow wise. And when your time comes, you will leave this world knowing that you have lived it fully. Amara nodded, tears streaming down her face. Not tears of sorrow, but of something else, something clean. The old woman turned to leave, but Amara called out, "Wait!" The old woman paused behind her. "Will I ever see you again?" The old woman glanced back over her shoulder, and for the first time, she smiled a smile that was not sad. "You see me every day, in every beggar, in every forgotten face, in every person the world refuses to notice." And then she was gone. Not vanished, just gone, as if she had simply walked into the night and became part of it. Amara sat alone among the graves, her body tired, her heart heavy, but no longer hollow. For the first time in her life, she felt real. Amara did not return to her hut that night. She stayed among the graves until the moon rose high and full, casting silver light across the red earth. The ancestors were quiet. The forest breathed softly around her, and for the first time in weeks, she felt something close to peace. But peace, she would learn, was not the same as comfort. When she finally stood and began the slow walk back to the village, her legs trembled, her back ached, her hands, her old withered hands, clutched her wrapper tightly against the cool night air. She moved through the darkness like a shadow, unseen and unnoticed, just as the old woman had said. You will be seen by those who matter. But who mattered now? The village was asleep when she arrived. The huts were dark, the cooking fires reduced to glowing embers. Somewhere, a baby cried softly, then quieted. Amara slipped into her hut and closed the door behind her. She did not light a lamp. She sat in the darkness, her back against the wall, and stared at nothing. The choice had been made. The curse, no, the truth, would remain with her. She would age, she would remember, and the world would continue to see her as it always had, beautiful, untouchable, young. But she would know. And that knowing was a weight heavier than any she had ever carried. The next morning, Amara rose to the sound of Nongozi's voice outside her door. "Amara, are you still sleeping? The market is already full." Amara rose slowly, her joints stiff. She wrapped her hands in cloth, covered her graying hair with a scarf, and opened the door. Ngozi stood there, smiling brightly, a basket of oranges balanced on her head. "Ah, there you are. I thought maybe you are sick. You've been so quiet lately." Amara forced a smile. "I'm fine." Ngozi's eyes swept over her, saying nothing. "Good. Chief Okonkwo sent a message for you. He wants you to visit him this evening. He says he has something important to discuss." Amara's stomach turned. Chief Okonkwo, the man who wanted to marry her, the man who saw only her face and never her heart. "I'll think about it," she said softly. Ngozi laughed. "Think about it? Amara, he's a chief. Any woman in this village will leap at the chance." She adjusted her basket and turned to leave. "Don't take too long, oh. A man like that won't wait forever." Amara watched her go, her chest tight. A man like that won't wait forever. But what kind of man was he really? A man who wanted beauty? A man who wanted possession? A man who had never once asked her what she dreamed of, what she feared, what she carried in her heart. And she had been willing to marry him because he was powerful, because it would raise her status, because it would confirm what she had always believed, that she was special. But she wasn't special. She was just a woman who had never been tested. Until now. That evening, Amara did not go to Chief Okonkwo's compound. Instead, she returned to the marketplace. She moved through the crowd slowly, her eyes scanning the faces around her. For the first time, she truly saw them. The mother with a crying baby strapped to her back, exhaustion etched into every line in her face. The young boy selling roasted plantains, his clothes too big, his eyes too old. The elderly man sitting in the shade, forgotten, his hands folded in his lap. She saw them. And they saw her, not as Amara the Beautiful, but just another woman passing through. It was strange, painful, liberating. She stopped in front of the old man and knelt down beside him. "Are you hungry, father?" she asked softly. He looked at her with rheumy eyes, surprised. Yes, my daughter. I have not eaten today." Amara reached into the small pouch she carried and pulled out a few coins. She pressed them into his hand. "Buy yourself something warm." The old man stared at the coins, then at her, his eyes glistening. "Thank you," he whispered. May the ancestors bless you. Amara smiled, a small, sad smile. They already have. Over the following weeks, Amara's life changed in ways no one else could see. She stopped visiting Chief Okonkwo. She stopped wearing her finest wrappers. She stopped seeking admiration. Instead, she sought the invisible. She brought food to the beggars in the market. She sat with the sick where no one else would. She listened to the stories of the elderly, the forgotten, the overlooked. And slowly, something inside her began to shift. The aging continued. Her hair grew whiter, her skin grew thinner, but her heart grew larger. She began to understand what the old woman had meant. You will be seen by those who matter. The broken saw her, the forgotten saw her, and in their eyes, she was not beautiful. She was kind. One day, a young girl approached her in the market. The girl was thin, her eyes wide and nervous. "Are you the woman who helps people?" she asked quietly. Amara blinked. I try." The girl bit her lip. "My mother is sick, very sick. No one will help us because we have no money. But I heard you don't ask for payment." Amara's chest tightened. She thought of her mother, years ago, wasting away with sickness while others turned their backs. "Take me to her," Amara said. The girl's home was a small crumbling hut on the edge of the village. Inside, her mother lay on a thin mat, her face pale, her breathing shallow. Amara knelt beside her and felt her forehead. Fever, and something worse, an infection perhaps, or exhaustion that had gone too long untreated. "I'll find the herbalist and I'll pay for the medicine." The girl's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. Amara stayed with them through the night, bathing her mother's forehead with cool water, speaking softly to her, holding her hand. And when her mother's fever finally broke just before dawn, she opened her eyes and looked at Amara. "Who are you?" she whispered. "Just a woman who remembers."
Months passed, then a year, then 2. Amara's transformation was complete. Her hair was now fully grey, streaked with white like the first frost of a dry season. Her hands were gnarled and spotted, her back bent slightly from the weight of age that had come too soon. Her face, once flawless, now carried the deep lines of a woman who had lived long and seen much. But her eyes were different. They were no longer sharp and dismissive. They were soft, watchful, kind. The village still saw her as beautiful. Chief Okonkwo still sent messages, though she never replied. Ngozi still marveled at her skin, her figure, her grace. But Amara no longer cared what they saw. She cared only about what she saw. She had become a healer of sorts, not in the way Udoka was, with herbs and powders and spells, but in the way that mattered most, with presence, with patience, with the quiet act of seeing people who had been invisible. She sat with the dying, she fed the hungry, she listened to the stories of the old, and she taught the young to do the same. People began to speak of her in hushed tones, though they did not know why. "There is something different about Amara," they would say. "She has changed." But they could not name the change, they could only feel it. One evening, as the sun set over the village, Amara sat beneath the baobab tree in the marketplace. Her legs were tired, her joints ached, but she was content. A small child approached her, a boy no more than 5, with wide, curious eyes. "Are you a grandmother?" he asked. Amara smiled. "Not yet, but perhaps one day." The boy tilted his head. "You look like a grandmother." Amara laughed softly. "Do I?" "Yes, my grandmother has hands like yours." He reached out and touched her wrinkled hand gently, without fear. Amara's throat tightened. She looked down at the boy's small fingers resting on her aged skin, and she realized something. He saw her, truly saw her, not because the curse allowed it, but because children always saw the truth. "Your grandmother is a wise woman then," Amara said softly. The boy nodded seriously. "She tells me stories." "Then you are very lucky." The boy smiled and ran off, back to his mother, who was haggling with a yam seller nearby. Amara watched him go, her heart full. That night, as she lay on her mat in the darkness, she thought of the old woman, the watcher, the mirror. She had not seen her again, but she felt her presence everywhere, in the faces of the beggars, in the voices of the forgotten, in the quiet moments when the world paused and allowed kindness to breathe. "Thank you," Amara whispered into the darkness. And somewhere, far away, or perhaps very close, the old woman smiled.
Years continued to pass. Amara grew older still, but she lived. She lived fully, deeply, with a richness that beauty had never given her. She never married, she never bore children, but she became a mother to many, to the orphans, to the sick, to the lonely. When she finally died, many years later, the entire village came to mourn her. They could not explain why her loss felt so heavy. After all, she was just a woman, beautiful, yes, but that was all they remembered. Or so they thought. But the children remembered, the beggars remembered, the forgotten remembered, and in their hearts, Amara lived on, not as the woman who had once been cruel, but as the woman who chose to remember. Cruelty does not always return with thunder. Sometimes it returns in silence, carried by the one who gave it, worn in the skin, carved into the soul. But kindness returns in whispers, in the faces of those you save, in the memory of those you see. And that is the legacy that lasts. If this story touched your heart, don't let it end here. Subscribe to this channel and join a community that values the lessons our ancestors passed down, because every story has the power to change us. Hit that subscribe button now and let's continue this journey together.